So, my goal for the next few minutes is to take a step with you into the world of personal growth. If I'm lucky, we'll all leave feeling a little bit better about how we've done so far in life, our own personal growth. So I have to start with the obvious. Personal growth is tough. It's something that we all aspire to. We all want to be happier, be healthier, be wealthier, find love, find meaning. But it's something that eludes many of us. And I found that most people don't have a chance to really dive deep into this subject. And we certainly haven't had a chance to really study the science behind it. So what happens as a result is we always fail to become who we truly want to become. So we fail to lose those extra 20 kilos. We fail to earn enough money. And we fail to self-actualize. So you're probably wondering why I'm wearing this pack on my back. And I promise I'll get to that later. By the way, this pack is supposed to represent a giant boulder. But as you can imagine, it's kind of hard to find giant boulders in Singapore. And actually, I did find one, but I just couldn't get the permit to bring it in here. So, I'd like you to begin by imagining yourself walking down the street, and you see someone who resembles yourself, just walking down. Let's say it's the same build, same height, same hair color, so you can empathize with this person. Let's say it's a guy for the sake of simplicity. And I want to ask you, if this person looks like they're having a terrible day, just a bad day, in fact, you can hear them muttering to themselves, I messed up. I messed up so bad. Why did I have to do that? How likely is it for you to go run up to him and start beating him down, pulling his hair out, calling him names? No one here would do that. But that begs the question, how many of us have done that to ourselves today? How many of us have beat ourselves up today for some mistake we had? This happens more often than you might realize. Psychologists call this negative self-talk. So another way to picture this is to imagine the worst movie you've ever seen. I mean really, really bad. We're talking Sex and the City 2 meets Scary Movie 3 bad. That's how bad. So how much would I have to pay you to go and watch that movie over and over again? Probably more money than I have. So let me ask you, how many of you replay horrid memories in your head over and over and over again? It's the same thing. With a bad movie, at least we get popcorn. When we replay these horrid memories, we just get depressed. So these two things, negative self-talk and ruminating about the past, are examples of what we could call the burden of self. Our burden of self is that giant boulder we carry on our backs at all times. It's this pack I have on right now. It's something that we all have, some different shapes and different sizes. The good news is that we can actually release this boulder. And if you study the ancient texts, all the way from the Dhammapada, the Quran, the Bible, all the way up until the modern scientific literature, you see one theme emerging over and over, and that is of mindfulness. So mindfulness is being aware of your present moment without judgment. It's as if you're studying yourself, you're observing yourself from a distance, your own thoughts and feelings, but somewhat disconnected, so you have some objectivity. Now, mindfulness was taught by Socrates, by the Buddha, by the current Dalai Lama, by the modern positive psychologists who study this today. And once you start experiencing it for yourself, you kind of understand the merit behind it. So the way I started on this path towards mindfulness was to practice intentional distraction, something we can all do. So emotions are actually molecules. They're neurohormones that are emanated from the brain and then bounce around the brain and body for about 6 seconds before they're broken down and reabsorbed into the body. So when you're having an emotional reaction, one of the best things you can do is distract yourself. Take a 6-second pause, perhaps by imagining 6 of your favorite foods or 6 of your favorite TED Talks. Do something to distract yourself for that time period so you have a fighting chance to break that cycle. By the way, after you do this for a while, it becomes habitual. So I'd like to introduce you to one of my mentors. His name is Keith. Now Keith is a professional life coach. So he helps people with their personal growth on a daily basis. And he's been doing this for decades. So Keith knows his stuff. But there's one problem with Keith. Keith is overweight. After all this time, all this study, all this practice, he's still overweight. So I asked him about this one day, gently, and this is what he told me. He said that depending on how you look at it, health issues still elude me due to insufficiently developed willpower, appropriate alignment of subconscious psychodynamics, or bad luck with regard to genetics. So I think this is a great example of a mindfulness perspective. It takes someone with mindfulness to understand it so clearly and peacefully. And I'll mention that Keith, right now, carries his weight extremely well. And if this is something you struggle with too, here's a fun fact. Self-control is actually tied, research has shown self-control is actually tied to glucose, your blood sugar level. So when your glucose falls, your blood sugar, falls with it, your self-control usually falls with it too. So the next time you feel like you're losing focus and you can't keep yourself going, maybe you just need to literally recharge. Go grab some fresh fruit or some brown rice. So I'll also tell a personal story. This is one of the most embarrassing personal stories I have. It's how I did not get into the psychology program at my university on the first try. Some of you might be able to relate. And actually I didn't get on the second try or the third try. Now this is despite me loving psychology. So you can imagine the amount of tension and negative self-talk this created in me. It was pretty bad. Long story short, I kept my head up and I kept working at it and I kept applying and I started studying for once a little bit more. And I finally got in and it was great. I did extremely well in my classes and I graduated with 3 majors and 4 minors. So I loved school. But technically, I failed miserably to get a great GPA. So I look back at that time about all that stress that I experienced and I asked myself, was it worth it? Was it warranted? And I can clearly say now, after all this time, no. It didn't help with my grades, and the grades didn't really matter that much in the end. It hasn't impacted my life. So let's try telling your story. This is you as of a few hours ago, and I wanted to start with, you were born, your family loved you very much. You went to school, you started growing up, and you started getting a little older and wiser. And now you're here listening to this talk. But somewhere along the way, you failed to be perfect. So there's that test that you bombed, and you picked up a pebble. There's that person you fancied that came up to you and said hi, and you didn't know what to say. You blanked, so you picked up another pebble. And there's that answer you had that was so sublime, after the interview was over, you got another pebble. So over time, you built up this boulder, this burden of self, just like everyone else. There's your boulders. None of this is to say that we are relieved of our responsibilities to ourselves. We're still responsible to ourselves and to others. But what I am trying to say is that we're a little bit more forgiving of our mistakes, and that we practice mindfulness and self-compassion as opposed to criticism. Mistakes are okay. That's how we grow. That's how we become stronger and better. So with that in mind, let's close with my life for the last 2.5 years. This shows my life performance. The blue line are my goals. So I tracked every day for the last 2.5 years. Either I went to the gym, I ate well, things like that. So my goals are the blue line. And then I also tracked how productive, how happy, and how fulfilled I was on a scale of 1 to 10. So those two together make the red line, the overall score. My goal was to hit 80% on average, which is tough. So I asked, how should we look at this? My 2.5 years of personal growth. We could say it's a failure. After all, I never averaged 80%, and it doesn't look like I'm trending upwards yet. Or we could look at it as a success. The numbers are good, and I always made progress on my goals. Or perhaps there's a third perspective. Maybe we can just say, it is what it is. At the same time we say that to ourselves, we continue to work hard and diligently to get to where we want to be, just with mindfulness and self-compassion. So I don't know about you, but my back hurts. So I'd like to actually relieve my burden with all of you together. So what I want you to do is reach under your seats and take that sticky note or that piece of paper we planted there. If you've got a pen, go ahead and grab a pen. If not, you're going to have to write with your imagination. And I want you to picture in your head one image, one word, one phrase that best represents your burden of self, your boulder. And go ahead and write that now. I'll give you a few seconds. One word. Best represents your burden of self, your boulder. Call it what you will. Okay. Everyone has something written down? You're going to have to think fast, because my time is running out. So, I want you all to stand with your burden in your hand. Everyone go ahead and stand. Even if you don't have it yet, just imagine what it is. And we're going to release it together on the count of 3. Now you can either crumple up into a tiny ball and throw it as far as you can. You can tear it into pieces on 3, tear it into pieces, or you can let it gently fall away from you. It's up to you, but decide now. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you so much. We have a magician up next, so he might get rid of the trash for us.